Also hearing that junior doctors considering strike action from the start of next year. Joining us now, Pat McFadden for Labour. Hi, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I mean, you guys have supported the government when it comes to reducing the national insurance increase again. So that's £36 billion over 3 years that will not be in the pot. There's not enough money to go around to pay nurses, is what the government would say.
Well, it's only a couple of years since we were all clapping nurses and NHS staff during the COVID pandemic, so it's right that they get a decent pay rise now. It's important that that happens. On the overall budgets, we always thought it was a bad idea to put a national insurance rise in place when inflation was rising and people were always struggling with the cost of living crisis. That didn't make sense to us before, and it doesn't now. So that's one element that we think shouldn't proceed at this time, is the national insurance rise. Yeah,
but you think that nurses should get money, doctors should get money, rail workers should get money, everybody should get a pay rise by potentially about inflation. Where's all the money going to come from?
You've got to look at these things in the round, not just measure by measure. I mean, we could go through things about how we would raise money, but the key thing that's driving instability right now is the mini-budget a couple of weeks ago. That's what's caused this material risk to financial stability you were discussing a few moments ago. That's what's caused the spike in mortgage rates that's going to hurt people. We wouldn't have done that. And it's really important now because it looks like where the government's going to go is, having made the initial mistake, they're now going to institute a series of cuts in public services so that the users of those public services will end up paying the political price.
So we should borrow instead?
No, you've got to pause this and go back to that mini-budget a couple of weeks ago.
But he's going to.
It is clearly that's triggered this problem. It's a UK-specific problem. It has undermined the credibility of the UK. And what's really important now is that the consequence of that isn't a whole series of cuts in public services to make up for...
But he's going to do that. He's brought it forward to the 31st of October to address some of those very concerns.
But that would be an appalling outcome. What I'm concerned about is that they will double down and make the users of public services pay the price for their political mistakes. That's not the way this should proceed now. Having seen the chaos in financial markets, the better option would be to revisit the budget that caused those mistakes rather than cuts in public services to make up for them.
So OK, I hear you. So how are we going to find 60 billion quid? There wasn't 60 billion pounds in that mini-budget.
Well, there was 45 in it, I think they did. You wouldn't need to find £60 billion if you revisited the mini-budget itself. It's the scale of that, the idea that they would then double down on it, and the disregard for the economic institutions that safeguard the UK's economic credibility. It's all those things coming together.
So you reverse the decision on the corporation tax. What else would you do?
Well, you can go through it measure by measure. The one that we support in there, I say, is the national insurance rise. But the bottom line is we just wouldn't have announced that budget. And it's that budget that's caused the economic problems.
Yeah, but we are where we are. So how do you fix it?
Well, if you want other taxation measures, we think you could get more from the windfall tax, for example, significantly more than they're planning to. We've announced that we would get rid of non-dom status. You'd have a better balance overall. I haven't come on here to say that the government should never borrow. Governments do borrow. Governments around the world are borrowing.
Should they borrow more than they have already?
But this particular crisis we're seeing isn't because a threshold of £1 more or £1 billion more on borrowing has been reached. It's an overall approach of a big package of unfunded tax cuts financed purely through borrowing, and then saying, this is just the beginning, we're going to do more of this. That's what's caused the chaos. And what's really important now is that users of public services don't pay the price for the...
I'm not crying about what you're saying. I need a glass of water. I'm sure Corrie will bring one for me in just a second or two. Talk to me about what's happening with the former Shadow Minister Sam Tammy this morning. Tarry, forgive me. He's lost his position and he's lost his opportunity to be an MP at the next election. Is that the right decision?
Well, all MPs have to go through this process of reselection. I did it at the beginning of the year. It's essentially a vote of confidence or otherwise in you by your local party. I do know Jazz Atwal, the person who was voted for last night. He's really popular in Ilford. He'll be a great MP. I'm looking forward to working with him. That's part of our processes.
What was the answer to that question? I'm not sure what you were saying. Are you saying it was the right decision?
Well, it's a decision for the party members in Ilford.
Yeah, I know, but is that the right decision?
Well, it's their decision.
I know, but what do you think of the decision?
I think Jazz Atwell's a great guy. I think he's going to be a great candidate. He'll be a great MP if he gets elected, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, what about Sam?
Well, you know, this is a process that we all have to go through. I had to go through my reselection. Sam's had to go through his. What's
But he was standing on a picket line. He was supporting the workers, and now he's lost his job.
You know, who can say why the members in Ilford voted the way they did? They clearly thought Jazz Atwell would be a better candidate next time. As I say, Jazz Atwell's a good guy. He'll be a great MP, and I'm looking forward to working with him.
Talk to me about Tom Watson. Should he get a peerage?
Well, that's well above my pay grade.
No, that's you're here because I can put these questions to you. I'm not saying that you make the decision. OK, well, can you answer it?
I don't see why you shouldn't.
Well, we know why. Some people say he shouldn't because of what happened when there was a string of lies made about allegations about senior people here at Westminster, including Lord Britton, and his Lord Britton's now widow is furious by the suggestion that he could potentially get a peerage.
I'm sure when they're doing these nominations and considering these things, they take everything into account in someone's the full arc of their.
I understand that, but what do you think?
Look, I think if someone's been deputy leader of one of the major political parties in the country, it's not unusual that they'd end up in the House of Lords at the end of that time.
And it wouldn't be offensive to those that have suffered as a result of the allegations that were made?
Everybody will have their view, and people obviously got a right to their opinion about it. But
What's your view?
I think a deputy leader of a major political party ending up in the House of Lords is pretty normal. It's happened to plenty of his predecessors.
MPs are all back from today. PMQs tomorrow. We're going to see your leader up against the new Prime Minister. How do you think that's going to go?
Well, it's always interesting when you get a change like that. And I remember it back in the days when I worked with Tony Blair in Number 10, and sometimes the leader of the opposition would change. And I think it usually takes a while to work out the other person. It's a bit of probing, and it takes a while. So I don't think you'll see exactly how it will go tomorrow. I would say give it a month or two. Look at 5 or 6 of these jousts, then you'll know how it will go.
OK, try not to make me cry next time you come in.
I really will.
I'm so sorry about that. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thanks a lot, as always.